I feel like humans naturally tend to be perfectionists, or at least I know I am. A lot of times in the past, whether it be with my writing or whether it be trying to learn a new skill like piano or Spanish, or even with different YouTube channels I've had over the year, my perfectionism has almost, stopped me from putting in the time and effort that I want to within a specific field. Like when it came to my book, it felt like when I first, wrote something, when I first got like 60 pages into a new manuscript, and I first created that work of art, it seemed really good to me. Like I felt very comfortable and happy with it, and I was almost like joyful about how good it turned out. But for whatever reason, when I gave it enough space and time and I came back to it, it felt like, cringy, and it felt like terrible, and I hated it. And then it became hard to, continue to write. So I'd always end up inevitably starting a new manuscript, starting again from chapter one because I wanted to make it right. And I wanted to build, a good book off of a good start, and I felt like I could never get that right. It was the same way with all these different YouTube channels that I've had over the years because I wasn't willing to just trust the process and put in the consistent effort for as long as it took. And, I was always comparing what I was doing, my editing style, my thumbnails, my views, my retention rates, and whatnot, to like, the best out there, like the top creators. And of course, if you're comparing what you have, starting out to the best of the best, you're always going to fall short, and it can be sort of demotivating. It's like you might think you're an incredible violinist, and then you go to, a violin concert with like the greatest violinists in the entire world. And if you are a perfectionist, that can be very demotivating in some ways. It can make you feel like, wow, I just suck. Like, why am I putting all this time into this thing? Or it can make you feel less motivated to work on that because you're like, well, now I'm so much more aware now of this upper ceiling of this skill. I'm so much more aware of how far I really have to go to get there. And that's the thing, like, being a perfectionist can aid you in certain ways. I think it's a natural human adaptation. We want to, compare what we have to the best of the best and always be working towards the next thing. Like, progress is what life is all about. And if you don't have a good measure of what you're progressing towards, it's going to be hard to make that same amount of progress. So it's like perfectionism, we're designed with it for a reason. But if it becomes too much of an issue, if it becomes too demanding of you, then it'll stop you from actually making any real progress. It'll keep you in this feedback loop of doubt and, hating what you've done, hating the progress you're making and what you're creating. Like, a lot of people, even like the greatest of the great, like these famous painters and musicians throughout history, didn't think they were good. Like, they hated their own pieces. Like, there's all these famous stories of these different painters like Van Gogh, like just throwing away a lot of his paintings or burning them, or they hated to even look at them because it felt so subpar. It's like, in a way, we have that same mentality that we're just getting in our own way all the time. But I think that there is sort of a solution to this. And I'd say the solution, funny enough, is just to not look back, just keep looking forward. I found that, if I'm working on a book, if I just never go back and read what I've already written, like if I'm going chapter by chapter, obviously I remember the plot events, I remember everything I need to just, pick up and continue off where I left, then I can do that, But I found when I try to go back and read everything I've written, when I try to go back and watch past videos or past things, then it's like I start to feel inadequate. Every time I first make a video, it feels very good to me and I'm happy with it. If I just never go back and watch it after that first viewing, then in my mind, like, how I feel about it is that it was a good creation I made, it was a good chapter, it was a good video, like I played a good song. It's like when you dwell in that thing and you become obsessed with what you've made and keep thinking about it and keep being consumed by it, then eventually you come to the realization that it's not as good as you initially felt, and that excitement wears away, and then you're just upset because you're like, wow, I suck. I wish I was better. And there's other ways to combat this feeling. I think another one is just, having a goal-oriented mindset, like not worrying about what you're creating, but not worrying, sorry, that's a bad word. Not being concerned with what you're creating, but being concerned with where you're trying to get, It's like maybe this song I'm playing right now on the piano isn't that great, but there's a specific song I really care about that I'm trying to learn. It's like I'm not concerned with my performance in this moment, I'm just concerned with trying to get to this specific place. And, everything else just in the past, it's just stepping stones for you to get to where you're trying to get. every YouTube video I make on this channel is about just creating a brand for myself, letting the algorithm, understand who I'm trying to reach out to more and more, building up an audience, people who care about my content and want to watch it, learning how to edit videos better, learning how to do this or that. And the same can apply to my book in all sorts of ways. I think that, it's when you dwell on the things that you've already made that you become less able to create new things that are good. Like sometimes when I go to make these videos, for a little while I'm struggling about, what video topic. Because, things will pop into my head throughout the day that I think would be a good thing to talk about. Like, my parents got divorced, and a couple of days ago I had the idea to make a video about divorce and why divorce is hard. But I realized that you can't just assign yourself a topic. You have to be inspired. You have to have a feeling to, do a certain thing, speak about a certain thing that feels very meaningful and pressing to you in a moment. Oh, there's a dog. I'm gonna see if I can try to tame it. Come here, doggy. Nope, he didn't like that. Okay. What was I saying? But yeah, and it's the same with almost every creative pursuit. Like, you have to be deeply inspired in that moment towards a specific thing. Like, creation is an emotional, it comes from an emotional place. If you're working on a painting for months after months, like the same painting, you might eventually feel burned out and want to paint something new. Especially, creative processes that take a long time, and you're consistently working on the exact same part of... Oh, there's another bone. Okay, let's try this. Let's see if this works. I really like how they've, changed up the different types of dogs in different biomes. I think just little things like that, make this game feel so much more alive. Wonder what I should name him. And so, just keep your eyes on the road ahead. You can't really look back and see what's happened in the past. You just have to look at where you're at, what you have control over in this moment, and just keep moving forward. You shouldn't be concerned with, what you look like today, because tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day, a year from that point, you'll look different. Like, if you're consistently going to the gym, at a certain point, I'm not concerned with what I looked like 3 months ago. I'm concerned with what I look like right now and trying to look better. And it's not just about, like, for aesthetic purposes or for some vain reason, but just because, you like to see that progress in yourself. You like to see that, really, I am progressing. As long as you can see the progress, then the results shouldn't really matter. It shouldn't matter how a video does, shouldn't matter how a book reads, shouldn't matter how a piece on the piano plays or sounds. It should just matter that you're making progress. And as long as you know that you're making progress, I feel like that can help ease that perfectionism that's natural in all of us. Because that perfectionism comes from a source of just wanting to make progress in our lives, wanting to be a productive individual, wanting to be the best version of ourselves. And if you are a perfectionist, it can be a very motivating thing, but it can also cause you a lot of stress. I've been a very stressed out person my entire life, and so much of that comes from this natural sense of perfectionism I have. So if I were to leave you with anything, I would say that just focus on the future. Don't look back at all. Just focus on what you can do right now in this moment and where you're trying to get. Oh my gosh, that looks so sick. I don't know if you guys can tell, purple's kind of my color. That's kind of my vibe, but yeah, I'll have to think of a name for him. Leave some comments. Let me know what I should name this new addition to our crew here on this world. And I'll see you guys next time.